Hey folks, welcome back to the farm. We got a beautiful day out here. It's above freezing, probably 40 degrees today, even though we still have quite a bit of snow on the ground. You can see we're still dealing with quite a bit. Doesn't slow the dogs down any though. Ruby, don't mess with the chickens, please. She's still got to learn that. So we're going to prune some grapevines and we're going to prune some fruit trees, and we'll bring you along and show you how to do it. Stick around. So I want to get some dormant spray on our grapes and our fruit trees, and that's the only spray that I do. I don't do any kind of pesticide, even though the oil in the dormant spray will kill some bugs, but it's non-toxic. So the spray that we use is a copper and an oil solution. If you go to your garden center or something like that, they'll tell you which to get, and you just mix it at the appropriate rate and spray it onto your fruit trees in the winter while they're dormant. And that fungicide helps keep the fungus from growing on the trees and the buds, which will cause damage to your buds. And it'll also permeate, the oil will permeate some of the eggs and kill your bugs as well. But before I want to do that, we want to prune so we're not spraying a bunch of unnecessary wood on the tree. The dogs always have a good old time when they're outside playing, carrying on and biting each other. Get all crazy. We're going to start with our grapes. So you can see we have some immature little grapes here on the vine. We had a real early freeze this year, and our grapes never fully developed because the vines died. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and pick off all these old raisins on here and get rid of those. All right, we've gone through and we've taken all of our old grapes, or old dried up raisins, off of the vine. And some of you may be asking, why didn't we harvest those raisins? Well, these are not seedless grapes. So I don't know if you've ever consumed a raisin with a seed in it. It's pretty much all seed. It's like eating cherries with pits in them. So now the next thing we're going to do is address the canes on here. So you can see our spacing of our grapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out which our best cane is coming from each plant going each direction, which we're going to turn into our main cordons, or the main branch across the top of the trellis here. And we're going to eliminate all other canes on except the main cane that comes along. And all of the side canes off of that cane we're going to leave for now, but we'll figure out just which ones our main canes are, and then we're going to cut those right where these middle posts are. So this will be the end of this vine, and it'll also be the end of this vine here. And we're going to do that on all three of them after we figure out what the main canes are. So you can see the plant come up, and we have our two main canes here. So we're going to cut this one off, but we're going to leave this one and this one. Now our main cane that came from this grape, the Concord grape over here on the right, we've cut it. Here it is right here. And you can see it's clear, grown clear over here into this one. So we don't want to just jerk this thing out of here. You want to come through and cut where all these tendrils are holding on, because we don't want to tear up our other vines. Now you can see this grape here has actually two canes. It's got this one here and this one here. This one we're going to use for our main. So this one here is going to come completely out, clear back to the main vine. All right, this vine here had a cane that went clear over here that we've cut out. So we've terminated everything right here. See, this one here has also got these big long canes coming off of this short one. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to clip it right here, leaving this portion, but getting rid of this excess down here. And then we'll eventually do that on all of these canes. Anywhere they've got a crazy big long branch out, we're going to shorten those up, and we'll show you how to do that. All right, we've taken care of all of our big crazy crossovers that cross from one vine to another. We've terminated them on all the center posts. So now we're going to go through and look at the spacing of the canes and start getting rid of some of those. So what you're going to do is you're going to come here onto the main cordon out here, and we're going to look at our canes. We want them to be about 8 to 10 inches apart. So we have one here on the end, and we have another one here, so we're going to clip that one out. We have a nice one here, so we're going to take these out right there. So look at our spacing. We're going to come down. This one here comes way over here, so we're going to cut this about right here to get rid of this long piece. And then if you look at our spacing, we have this one here, so we can actually get rid of that one. And then we have one here. This is close, so we're going to get rid of this one. Make sure when you come down that you cut those tendrils so we don't hurt our canes. So look at our spacing here. We'll get rid of that bud there. We have a lot right here, so we'll get rid of that bud there. Make sure you cut right underneath the bud, but leave a little spur here, because if this gets diseased at all, we don't want to affect the main branch here. Now, you can see where the main plant comes up. We're pretty good right there. Anything down here, anything lower on the plant, we want to get gone. Now, as we continue on this other cordon, we have a nice one right here. So we're going to cut that one. And then we'll cut this center one out here. And these down here look pretty good. So you can see we've got the spacing now on all of our canes coming off the main cordon. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come back and address the lengths of these canes. So these down on here on the end are fine, but like this one right here, we'll want to cut that back there. So we're there about a foot to 18 inches long. 18 is better. So we'll come down here, we'll cut this one about here, that one about there. This one's fine. We'll cut this one about there. Get that tendril off of there. That one back there is fine. This one's fine here. We'll maybe cut the end of it off. So the rest of that vine looks good. So you can see how much cleaner that vine looks right there. And that's going to promote some really good grapes next year. It's not going to go all crazy on you trying to support too much of the plant. So having a good spacing in that vine will distribute the sugars and everything in that vine really nicely and give you some really good grapes. Now, back in high school, we had what was called vine judging, where we had teams on the FFA where we would go out and actually do vine judging. They would select 4 vines, and we would judge those vines, and we would kind of give like a little speech to the judge, telling them why we placed one vine in front of the other. We would score them 1, 3, 2, 4, whatever. They would all be numbered. But we did that in high school. It was pretty cool. They do that with trees and everything out there in California. So we're going to come over to these next vines here. So you can see we have a termination here. We have this one coming from way over here. We're going to cut that off. So bam, bam. Let's get rid of this one here. Got another one here. So we're going to lose this one here. We got that one there. This one comes off of there too close, so we're going to get rid of this. You can see it goes clear over there. So we'll cut these tendrils so that will come out of there without tearing things up. And that one's gone. So this we need to address a little bit. So we have several shoots coming off here. We'll cut those off. We'll leave this kind of main shoot here. But since we have this one right here, this one can kind of go. So we're going to cut that one off. And we're going to cut this one off. So once we get these tendrils, you kids need to calm down. Don't make me come over there. So you can see how much cleaner that is right there. We'll address the length on this one. Cut it off about right there. So we took care of that whole mess right there. So you can see we have another kind of mess here. We didn't address that during the year because we wanted to see which ones really stood out. So we'll take this one off. We'll take that one off. Cut that tendril. So we've now cleaned up that area. That cane is about the right size. So we have all these canes here. So what we're probably going to do is take this one off because we got a good spacing there. And we'll probably take that one off in the back because we got some in the front here. I'm going to cut some of these tendrils loose so these canes will fall down free. And then we're going to address all this. I'll come back after I get that. It's going to kind of take two hands. Now we've got our middle vine all pruned up, cleaned up real nice. You can see they look a lot cleaner, a lot more uniform. So now we're going to dive into this one here. Now, if I didn't mention that this type of pruning that we're doing is called a cordon cane prune. Cordon meaning the top two laterals are your cordons, and then we're leaving a cane. Now, a lot of your wine grapes, you do what's called spur pruning. So check your variety to see which kind of pruning you got to do. Spur pruning, you would actually come in here, you would leave 2 or 3 buds, and then you'd cut it, just leaving this small spur, and then your new cane would grow off of that spur, and then you'd do the same thing next year, and pretty soon you get like, looks like tree branches as they get older. But check your variety, like I said. These are cane pruned. You can pretty much get by with any variety. Cane pruning, you can do that. You can also do a double cordon, which means if you had another lateral down here about halfway like this one, you can run 2 more cordons down here off of that same plant as they grow off of the center vine. You can do a double decker. But we want to leave some light down here because we got some stuff planted down here. So this is what we're doing, and that'll provide plenty of grapes for us in a year that the weather cooperates with us. Now with grapes, you can also do what's called head pruning, which when the grapevine is small, you would clip it at about 2 feet. And then as it grows, every year you'd leave a spur on that small vine. Initially, the vine would be supported, like with a T-post. After that vine gets pretty big, it'll actually start looking like a tree like this. And it'll have, from those spurs as they grow out, it'll look like it has branches, but it'll be like a compact little grapevine like that. And then once the stump's big enough, it'll be self-supporting. And then every year the canes just grow off of that like a little tree. And that's what they call head pruning. So we're here at our first tree that we're going to prune. This is one of our new pluot trees that we got from our buddy Matt out in California. So you can see how the secondaries on this tree are way down there on the bottom. We've got a real nice branch coming up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut these 2 off. We're going to make this our main trunk here. And then we're going to leave our main trunk alone, except for right here. We're going to top this at the length of all this other stuff, so all this can grow out really nicely. And then we'll figure out this next year after it grows which ones of these branches here will be our secondaries. And then say these here will be our secondaries. We'll come back next year, we'll hack that right there, and then those secondaries will be very nice branches. So let's get everything down there low cut off. Okay, there's the after shot of this tree. Yeah, we got a lot going on up here, but we want to make sure which of these branches are going to survive and do well before we do any more training on this tree. But you see we got a nice main trunk now, and that's what we want to start with to make a really nice tree. The other thing that's worth mentioning, you don't want any real low branches, because when we come to, if we want to do any weed spray, we don't want any foliage down there at the ground. All our foliage we want up high to where the Roundup or whatever we use can't get on it. Spraying the ground with Roundup will not hurt this tree, as if you get it on the leaves. But some sprays will hurt if they're sprayed on the ground, so make sure you're checking your labels so they make sure that they can be sprayed around your fruit trees if you're doing weed spray. The best way to do it, however, is just fill this whole thing in here with mulch, and then you don't have to spray at all. I also removed the tags off of the trees so there's not any constriction there, because remember, we came through and we made our aluminum tags here, so we no longer need those on the trunk. Our next tree in line here is a peach, and you can see we have a lot going on with our peach. It really did well this last year, got well established, because this was one of the trees we planted either very early in the year or we planted them last year. So it's got a bamboo rod on it that we can get rid of. This tree no longer needs that. So a peach tree needs to be open in the middle, because you need sunlight and everything to get down in the inside to avoid getting any kind of mildew or anything else going on. So we have some nice secondary limbs down here. So like this limb right here, the top center limb, we're going to cut that out. So we just have our secondaries there, and I'll show you what that looks like just with that one cut. So this is the after picture. You can see with just that one cut, now this looks a whole lot more like a fruit tree. So now we have plenty of primaries down here to choose from. So we're going to make sure that the primaries are evenly spaced around the tree. You want no more than 4. You can get by with 3, but I prefer 4. So everything down real low on this tree we're going to get rid of. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to kind of top the tree to keep a more compact form. And even when the trees get large, you want to come through and top them at whatever height you want your tree. Obviously, this is going to grow taller. But when we get up here about 7 feet tall, that's when you want to come every year, and anything over 7 feet you want to cut out. So let's clean this up a little bit, and I'll show you the after on this. All right, you see what a nice shape we got now. We've picked our 4 secondaries that we want. So now let's come through to the easy part, kind of where this tree, the average height is on this tree. You can see that there's kind of a general height. So we're going to come in here and we're going to match that kind of general height of the tree. Anything above that's going to go. So you see that? See how we're taking shape? So the next thing you want to do, we have our secondaries. Anything growing towards the middle of the tree needs to come out. So this one's growing towards the middle. This one's growing towards the middle. This one. And so on and so on. I think we have them all. There's one there. So now, you see you have your secondaries, and see how this comes up into 3. And this one's kind of dead anyway. So we'll come in here, take that out, and then we got a nice branch there. It's really even. This one here we're going to leave. This one here, you can see these. So we're going to clip that one, and we're going to clip this middle one out like that. So you see we got our secondaries, and then we branch off of that secondary as well. And see this one here has got our secondaries. So we're going to come up to that middle one and take it out. And the rest of this tree can be left. So we've got a really nice shape to our tree. So it's going to grow and look real nice. Probably going to take that one out there too. But this is going to be a really nice shaped fruit tree, and the inside is clean. Now, anytime you cut the top off of a branch, it promotes the growth of that branch underneath. So you see how we got kind of a hole here? So I'm hoping that these buds next year grow. We get another branch coming out this way. And once we get that, we can clip this one off and it'll fill this end or side of the tree over here. And it'll look really good. You can see this is another one of our peaches here. There's not much we need to do to this because this is really a brand new tree. But you see our nice branches up here. So we're going to come down here, get rid of that stuff, probably even that one. And then that's going to do good. And then we're going to clip this here so we don't promote any more upward growth with that main stem. So we're going to see how this tree develops now, and we can do a lot more shaping with this one next year. I'm going to take our tag off, and then this one's done. Now our cherry trees, we're not going to prune. All we do on our cherry trees is just let them go. Because the cherry trees, the fruit's not heavy enough to where if it's overloaded, it's going to break the tree down. A cherry tree can support pretty much whatever fruit is on it. So we're going to just let this thing go. We're not going to do any pruning on our cherries, but we will do the dormant spray. So we'll just let this baby grow. If it gets tall enough, maybe the birds will eat the ones up high and they won't attack it as bad, and we can pick the low ones for us. Our other pluot tree is fine. This is our flavor grenade pluot. All I did was cut some length off of these outer branches, and I cut one low branch because I want to see what all this is going to do this year before I get too worried about shaping. Go look at our mature apples down here, and I'll show you how once the tree gets larger, what we do. So this is our largest apple here. This tree here already had a decent shape when we moved in, and this one over here did not. So it's been 2 years since we arrived, and we're promoting new growth on that tree to develop some more secondaries. And then once we do, we can clip that weird middle branch out of there, and we can make this a really nice looking tree like this one. So you can see where we topped this tree last year, and we're going to come through and we're going to top it at that same level. So where you see these cuts, everything above those cuts is going to go. All that's going to be gone. And then all these lower branches are nice fruit wood. The only thing that we're going to come through and do is, like, you see this branch here that's growing into the middle, like that'll come off. And anything that's really crossed up with any of the other limbs, like that branch over there that's coming towards the middle, that's going to come off. So let me prune this up and I'll show you what it looks like once we have it pruned. I have to go get our little electric pruners for these because I can't do this big tree with the hand pruners. I have to apologize about the guineas. They're going crazy over there. But this is the saw I was talking about. Little one-handed, like a sawzall. It's really handy for pruning. You can grab the branch with one hand and run the saw with the other hand. So you can see our large apple tree now. See the shape that we got? We've got everything coming out of the middle, taken out of there. Anything that was crazy down low sticking out where it would take me off the lawnmower, got rid of that. So now that we've got our topping done here, we've got plenty of fruit wood left on this. I'm going to go through with my hand clippers, and this stuff up here I'll just cut at our height, the little stuff. I don't want to do that with this saw because we'll shred the area. Now anytime you're cutting a bigger branch, say this one here that we cut off, if it was a little bit bigger, you'd want to cut it out here and then make your final cut back here, because if you cut it here, the branch falls down, it sometimes will peel the bark back and then you'll get some disease here. So make a long cut first, then come back and do your final. All right, we've come back through with our hand pruners. We got everything that was small that was going up high, And then you can see we've cleared out the center of the tree. Anything that was growing towards the center, we cut off. So let's go to our other tree. There's a little item over there I want to show you. Now this is the tree I told you we were shaping into another tree because it was absolutely hideous when we came in here. So you can see we cut off this branch down here a year or two ago. We've got this main branch coming up here now that's going to provide some more secondaries down here, which is great. And then eventually we'll be able to take this branch off, this one that's going out here. But I want to make sure these branches do well before I do that. So next year this is probably coming off. But this year I'm going to cut this one here. So that'll promote the lower growth down here of these branches that I want to use as secondaries. And this tree will eventually be a really nice tree. And then we'll be able to cut some of this lower stuff off. Like, see, we have this new branch here. So this year, this branch here can come off. It's down there in the way of the lawnmower anyway. And then, see the other branch over here. We can cut a little bit more of that off. I don't want to get too far back. And then eventually, once all this gets established and growing good limbs, I'm probably going to cut this one off this year so we can have these two going here. And then I'll cut this one here, so where that's kind of spread out, we'll cut the center out of this one and just kind of clean it up. I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. All right, here's our small tree. It's looking pretty good. We're starting to get a shape. I know this looks aggressive, but it needed to be done. You can see we're starting to develop some limbs down here in the bottom, and that's fantastic. In a few years, this tree will look as nice as that tree over there, promise. Now you can see this looks pretty aggressive, but you want to keep your trees, your fruit trees, down at a manageable level, other than, like I said before, the cherry trees. You don't want to have to bring a ladder out here to pick your fruit. It's compact. All of those limbs are really nice, heavy limbs. So when you get a heavy fruiting year after you thin out, those limbs aren't going to hang down to the ground and break off like the little spindly ones will. But you do need to leave a little fruit wood on the trees, which is last year's new wood will be second year this year, and that's what your fruit grows on. But coming together, we're going to actually turn this into a tree. Now, our big apple trees out there, those are a different story. The only thing I cut off those is stuff that gets in the way when we're driving the tractor around, because they are humongous. This tree on the right actually was laying all the way on the ground. Those were planted too close together. Of course, if they were kept like these trees, you wouldn't have to worry about it, but those were let go. And they're crazy mature trees, two different varieties of apple. But we cut off the portion that was on the ground, so we have some vertical growth out of there. The tree on the right was actually gave us the most apples 2 years ago. We didn't get any last year because weather wasn't permitting. But that's all we do with those out there. I forget which variety those are. These two here are Honey Crisp apples. Brandy's chilling over there in the sun, where she was until she heard her name. You don't have to get up, pup. All right. I hope you enjoyed our little pruning video out here. Hope you learned something. If you want to know a lot more about pruning, if you go to Dave Wilson Nursery, there's a guy on there online. Look on YouTube for Dave Wilson Nursery. He does a really good job with explaining pruning and thinning and all that stuff. We'll cover thinning later on in the year if we get any fruit set, because here in Nebraska it depends on the weather early in the year as to whether you're going to get fruit or not, because if the buds freeze, you're not getting anything. But check out Dave Wilson Nursery. They got some great videos on there, especially if you live in a milder part of the country. Fantastic stuff. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here on Markelly Farm.